So prior jumping into the development, you need to know what are the things you should be familiar with. So coming to the development, why we need to go for development initially, we need to know that. So previously for development, there will be a lot of tools like workflows, process builder, flows for automation, most of the things. Like as like Salesforce thought like, why should we have multiple declarative development tools? Why can't we make one tool as a much powerful one? With that note, they'll come 1 year or 2 years back and they developed a lightning flows and they made it as a much powerful tool to perform like automation task. And flows is a much powerful tool nowadays which is used for automation, means declarative development tasks. Okay, so with by having flows, why should we go for customization? So sometimes if your complexity in a code increases, or like a if the complexity or depth is increases for the automation, if you go with the flow, if you get any mistakes by to debug that, it will take much time basically. And compared to Apex flows, sorry, Lightning flows, Apex programming language, if you do some customization with the Apex programming language, it will be more faster. By considering this constraint, so if there is a much complexity involved, or if there is a huge number of tasks we need to perform, on such cases, we need to go with the customization. So for the customization, coming to the Salesforce customization, initially we need to have a knowledge on Apex. So complete development of Salesforce rely on Apex programming language. Apex is a programming language which is very similar to Java syntax. If you are familiar with the Java, you can easily understand this stuff. Even I'll teach you in such a way that you should not by heart anything. Okay. So how we can utilize the resources, everything I'll guide you on that. Apex is a programming language which is used to handle Salesforce backend data. Okay. So, well, the next we'll be having concept called Apex triggers. So the purpose of Apex triggers is while creating a record, while creating a record, if you want to perform some automation based on some conditions, at the time we need to go with the triggers. Triggers means with the code, if you want to perform some automation, we'll take help of trigger. Automation is nothing but, let's suppose in the account, if rating field is missing, I want to add some error. You should specify rating field value. If you want to make some field value as a mandatory, we can do that. Let's suppose while creating a account, we need to create a contact also with the same account name and same phone number. So such kind of automation task we can perform with the triggers. If some condition met, if you want to perform some other automation, or if you want to create some other record, or if you want to update some other record, we can do that stuff with the triggers. The next, so Salesforce is a cloud CRM application. So whatever the records we are creating, it will store in a Salesforce database. In a backend, Salesforce use a Oracle database. The data completely stores in that database. So from the database, though it is a related database, from the database, in some cases, we'll get a requirement to fetch the Salesforce data into the Apex programming language. To fetch the data from Salesforce system, we should be familiar with the SOQL and SOSL. SOQL in SOSL. This is a step like SOQL. It is very similar to SQL. SQL means sales, sorry, like such query language, right? Coming to say SOQL, Salesforce Object Query Language. So we need to query the data related to the object. That's why they named it like a Salesforce Object Query Language. And coming to the SOSL, it is nothing but Salesforce Object Search Language. Okay, we'll see this stuff also very briefly prior to Apex itself. After discussing basic data types of Apex, we'll discuss this SOQL and SOSL. The next, we'll be having concept called asynchronous Apex. The next, we'll be having concept called asynchronous Apex. So asynchronous Apex, like whatever the basic Apex we'll see, it is a synchronous Apex. Synchronous Apex means, let's suppose if some like let's suppose you are writing some trigger. If sub condition met, it will perform that automation. Let's suppose if you are whenever you execute your code, then only this automation will run, whatever the automation you created. But some cases we will be having requirement like our code should run every day at a midnight. No one is using Salesforce, then only I need to perform some automation in a real time. On such cases, we'll take help of asynchronous Apex. So the main purpose of asynchronous Apex is to perform background operations. As Salesforce is a multi-tenant environment, means at a time lot of users can access a Salesforce system. So if some changes, some real-time changes, if we do while users working on something, they might get confused. If their records will update or something happen, they might get confused. To avoid that problem on a real-time data, we'll be having asynchronous Apex. The major purpose of this asynchronous Apex is if you want to run some task in a background. Let's suppose every Saturday and Sunday, I need to perform data cleaning activities. So without running that, it should run by default if you have an asynchronous Apex in a background. So if you want to perform background task, we can take help of asynchronous Apex. In this asynchronous Apex also, we'll be having several types. While discussing this concept, we'll walk through each and every type very briefly. After these, the next, like it is comes under very basic development course. And if you go for platform development certification also, these things only will be come up into the certification exam. So coming to the real-time development, you should have a much knowledge. This knowledge, like if you want to build a career as a developer, this knowledge won't be sufficient. On such cases, you should have a knowledge of like a more additional concept, that is integration. So this additional concept I'll walk through, I'll explain you these things as well. For this integration, I'll explain you few real-time scenarios so that you'll get a hands-on on this. So integration, I'll explain you few scenarios of integration as well. Okay. So after integration, coming to the integration, I'll explain you few real-time scenarios so that you'll be get hands-on on this integration. Then next, coming to the customization. So whatever the thing so far we are doing here, this is completely a backend customization. Means in a Salesforce UI only, if you want to perform customization, these things are more than enough or sufficient. Let's suppose if you want to create some custom component, some custom UI kind of thing, or like let's suppose if you want to perform web development activities. So if you go for web development, the scenario is completely different. If you want to create your own new component and if you want to deploy it in a Salesforce, we'll be having several approaches. In the initial days of Salesforce, a lot of people will use it Visual Force pages. Visual Force. It's an UI framework which is used to develop custom pages. Okay. So develop a custom page or custom application kind of thing in a Salesforce. In the initial days, they used Visual Force pages. As days are passing, this Visual Force pages mostly compatible with a Salesforce Classic, and these are much convenient in a Salesforce desktop applications. Nowadays, as technology is tremendously growing and lot of people getting a lot of knowledge and a lot of like technology is coming to the top notch, and a lot of people using mobiles, and mobile is a smaller device. So to sustain in a business, Salesforce also thinks about mobile, and whatever the Salesforce application or Salesforce cloud platform they are having, it should be compatible with mobile as well. By considering that node, they'll be come up with a concept called Lightning. Lightning is a UI which you are already familiar and which you are already working on this. So Lightning is a UI which is much user friendly. Okay. So if you want to do customization in a Lightning, we'll be having two frameworks. First one is a Lightning Aura framework. It's there in the market from 2014 or 15, I think. Still, it is there in the market. So Aura is a framework which is used to develop custom components or to build a custom component. As days are processing, Salesforce will be come up with their innate innate development framework, that is Lightning Web Component Framework. LWC is a Salesforce innate framework, so which is purely related on JavaScript and HTML. Okay, so most of the companies whoever customized their systems, so though developed with a lightning visual force or Aura, most of the people are trying to migrating towards LWC nowadays. Everyone trying to migrating toward LWC. So to make you understand Aura, I'll explain you trailhead module on this. And on LWC, like coming to Visual Force also, if needed, I'll walk through Trailhead model and I'll explain you Trailhead model. You should have a basic knowledge of that now. For that, I'll explain you that stuff. Coming to the LWC, I'll give you some knowledge on this. Okay, to cover up this complete LWC, it will take around 3 months. So why means coming to the LWC, prior to these, you should have a knowledge of HTML for the front end. For the front end, we should have a knowledge of HTML, CSS for styling, cascade style sheets, and JavaScript. To fetch the data from Apex classes, will take help of JavaScript. So for the front end, you need to be familiar with HTML and CSS, and for the sometimes to fetch the data from Salesforce database, will take help of Apex programming language, and to fetch the data from Apex programming language or Salesforce database, we need to take help of JavaScript. These things you should be familiar before going to LWC. Okay. And don't try to remember the syntax. Most of the things, be good with the syntaxes, try to understand the concepts. So for everything, Salesforce is having a complete guided setup. So for Apex, they'll be having Salesforce Apex developer guide. And for the next thing, what is the next thing? LWC, they will be having Salesforce Lightning design system. There you can see all the tags, all the pre-built libraries to build any Lightning web component as well. Any doubts so far?
Oh, no.
It's clear, right? Yes.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Ah, thank you. Now I'm coming to the Salesforce environment. Then where we can do the coding in a Salesforce system, where we can create an Apex class and everything. So for that, if you want to create the Apex class, go to setup. In a setup, you can type Apex. If you type here Apex, it will be take you to Apex classes. I'm coming to Apex classes. From here, what you can do is you can open developer console. Developer console means without saving the code, if you want to see how your code is behaving, if you want to test some functionality in a local environment, at the time you can go with the developer console and you can check any functionality. Whereas if you want to create any new Apex class, you can click on this new one, and you can create a new Apex class. Okay, generate from WSDL means it is a different cinema, like it is related to SOAP web services. I'll come back to that later, and that is not required to you as of now. In an integration, we'll use this. If you use the SOAP integration at the time, we'll use generate from WSDL. Run all test means, so I forgot to explain you one thing in a development course. So while implementing some Apex classes kind of things, you should be familiar with the test classes. Test classes are nothing but how accurately you wrote the code. To check your code accuracy, we need to be familiar with the test classes. I'll explain you that concept. Schedule Apex. If you want to run your Apex class at a specific time, you can go to Schedule Apex and you can schedule your Apex class. Okay. So it's the first place. From this place, whenever you want to create some Apex class or if you want to open a developer console, you can open it from here. It's the first way. But most of the times to open or to do any customization, and if you want to write some Apex code, we'll go to developer console and we'll do it. And if you want to use like a Visual Studio Code also, you can use it by integrating Salesforce with the Visual Studio also. We can do that. Later, while starting LWC, I'll show you that. Okay, so that you'll get hands-on on external custom code development platform as well. Okay, so now I open developer console. After opening developer console, what I'm doing is I'm going to file option. After going to file option, you can see like we can create a new Apex class, new trigger, new Visual Force page, static resource we can create, lightning component means lightning aura component also we can create. These many things we can create by coming to the file. Edit, I don't want to edit it. Debug. So if you go to debug, you can see open execute anonymous window. So if you click on this, one new window will be opened. Here you can write any code and you can test how it is working. So if you go to any programming language, to display the output, we'll be having some statements. Let's suppose if you go to C programming language, there we'll be having printf statement. Printf is a statement which is used to print something in a C language. If you go to Python, print is a keyword which is used to display something in an output. Coming to Salesforce, system.debug is a statement which is used to say something in an output. So whatever the thing you want to display, that thing you can specify in a quotation. Let's suppose here I want to display. So whatever the thing you want to display, you can specify that stuff in a quotations. Let's suppose I want to display, hey, hi, it is my first program. Hey, hi, it is my first program. Simple. For this, I did not did anything. So whenever you want to navigate to developer console, what you can do is go to setup. Here you will be having icon and you can click on developer console. Here you can click on open link in a new tab so that it will be open in a new tab. Otherwise, it will be open in a new window. Okay. So after opening this, it will be open like this. Here you can go to debug. While going to debug, you can click on open execute anonymous window. Okay, so in a Apex programming language, you should remember after completing the line, you need to keep semicolon. Okay, now after writing this line, if you want to execute your code, we'll be having execute option. So whenever we click on execute, so at the bottom, if the cursor is some other position, we need to comes to logs. Okay, in the logs, one log file is generated. You can see it is unreaded. Okay, and now only it is created. I'm opening this log. I'm double clicking on this. Just loading. So whatever the background task performed while running this code, everything will be noted down here. How many SQL queries we did, how many times we hit the database, every information will be noted down here. How many DML operations we performed. DML means data manipulation language. So we'll be having concept called governor limits. All those governor limits also we can see here. Number of SOQL queries. In a single transaction, we can do up to 100 SOQL queries. Number of query rows. In a single transaction, we can query up to 50,000 rows. We can understand. Number of SOSL queries. In a single query, we can write only up to 20 queries in a single Apex class. Number of DML statements. At a time, we can modify 150 records. Means if you are performing DML operations, DML means data. I'll come back to that later. DML concept also I'll explain you. At the time, we'll be get an idea. So now, whatever the output you are printing there, if you want to see that, you can select debug only option so that it will display the statements which are available in debug mode. Okay, debug only means it is giving the debug statement. This is only statement we kept there only, right? Hey, it is my first program. This is only the statement, right? So the statement is coming here. Any doubt so far?
Yeah, no, we are good.
Clear, right? I'm not going faster.
Yes.
If you feel anything uncomfortable, please let me know. So the thing is, you need to understand the concepts. Huh. So now, what I will do
The
is, huh,
where we can find
sorry,
this thing.
sorry,
No,
hmm.
where it's showing the details.
Where it is showing the details, huh? Which details?
No, whatever the we put the string, right?
Ha 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 ha.
Okay,
So
use it.
that will be
We
there
put
in a debug. If you go to
yeah,
debug,
debug.
open
Yeah.
execute anonymous window, here it will be.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you go to anonymous window, it will be there. Okay.
Yes.
After that, if you want to execute, like if whatever the code you want to write, you can write it in this and you can execute it. And
Yes.
let's suppose if you have a huge lines of code, if you might write a, let's suppose string. So I'll come back to this data types later within few minutes. String variable, string name equals to hey hi Prithvi. Let's suppose now I want to display the output present in this variable string. Control C. What I'll do is again I'll take help of system.debug. In this debug statement, what I'll do is I need to display name. Name means so here previously to display the output, whatever the thing we need to display, we kept it in comments and we are displaying it. But
Yes.
this time what we are doing is we are defining some variable. On that variable we are storing the data and the next we are trying to show the output. We'll see how it will work. So now I executed it. Again, you can see another log file is generated and I'm opening that log. Double clicking. If you double click on that, it will open a log. So now I am clicking on debug only. You can see, hey, hi, it is my first program. Hey, hi, Prithvi. Like that, it will come. So we are executing the complete thing. That's why it is coming like that. Let's suppose I want to see this portion only. I want to see this one only. So at the time, what you can do is you can select how much portion you want to execute and click on execute highlighted. So if you click on these, it will give you another debug log. I'm opening that log. So if you click on debug only, so you can see, hey, hi, Prithvi. Like this, you can execute a highlighted portion even. Okay, clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, you should not by heart all the things. For that, for everything, will be get references from Apex Developer Guide. So now, what I'll do is Apex Developer Guide, Salesforce. So here, I want to go to this link. So you can see what is an Apex and everything. It will be like a book kind of thing. What is Apex, how it is developed, everything. Apex development process. Like chapter wise, you can see everything. Learning Apex, writing Apex using development environment, writing tests, deploying to sandboxes, everything. Writing Apex, running Apex, references, everything you are getting. If you go to documentation, you'll see the documentation. I'll go to home. So here you can see the trails and everything. So in Apex Developer Guide, you can find everything. So prior to that, let's suppose I want to know the primitive data types present in Apex. So I'll type data types in Apex. Simply I'm typing this. So data type Apex developer reference guide. It is taking me into this website. So from here you can see all the data types. So writing an Apex folder, like it as a directory, will be having data types. What is a data type? What do you mean by data type? What do you mean by data type? See, I'm showing this marketplace. I'll explain you the concept clearly. Okay, so data type means, let's suppose here, now basically we'll be having two types of programming languages. One type of languages are static programming languages. Another type of programming languages are dynamic programming languages. So coming to the dynamic programming languages, we need not to specify a data type before storing the data. Let's suppose I'll clear the screen. Okay, so now I clean the board. Okay, so now let's suppose consider a scenario. We'll be having two types of programming languages. One is static programming languages, another one is a dynamic programming languages. So if you consider scripting languages, most of the scripting languages are dynamic programming languages. So if you consider Python, so in a Python, if you want to store some value, variables are nothing but placeholders. To store some value, we'll use a placeholders. So coming to the dynamic programming languages, let's suppose if I want to store some string data, I can specify variable name and equals to value. I can specify. It is a structure for dynamic programming languages. So we should not specify a data type. By default, in a runtime, while running a code, by looking at this data type will be assigned to this variable. Whereas coming to the static programming language, it is completely a different cinema. So here in the dynamic programming languages, based on the value, memory will be allocated to variable. Whereas coming to the static programming languages, whatever the data type you defined, based on the data type, memory will be allocated to variable. Let's suppose if you consider string data type. So in a dynamic static programming languages, initially we need to say data type. So I'll write a generic way, D type. After data type, space variable equals to, we need to store a value in this. So in a dynamic programming language, however, the memory allocation takes place based on a value. Whereas coming to the static programming languages, the memory allocation will be done based on the data type. So here, if this data type is, let's suppose here you defined a integer. Let's suppose data type defined as an integer. And if you are trying to store floating point value here, it won't allow. So if you specify data type as an integer and if you are trying to store floating point value, it won't accept. Why means here memory allocation done based on this data type. So coming to the integer data type, let's assume it will take 4 bytes of memory. And this value which you are giving, it is a floating point value. Let's assume it is considering 8 bytes of memory. So while defining that variable, the space is allocated based on this integer. It means it is having just 4 bytes of memory. In a 4 bytes of space, we won't be able to store 8 bytes, right? That's why heap size error will get. Most of the time, data type is not compatible. Like that, we'll get an error. So coming to the Apex, it is a static programming language. Means while defining a variable, we need to specify a data type. So coming to the any programming language, we'll be having primitive data type as well as we'll be having like a collection data types. So primitive data types are nothing but the data types which are used to store a single values. So coming to the Apex, primitive data types are, so coming to the Apex, primitive data types are, you can go to this data types folder and you can see I'll type it in a notepad as well. So coming to the Salesforce, like primitive data types are strings, integers, the next floating point values, date, date, time, ID, blob, etc. Boolean, etc. These are the primitive data types which are present in a Salesforce. So the purpose of primitive data types is, with the primitive data types we can store a single values. Sometimes we'll be having requirement to store multiple values in a single place. At the time we need to go with a collection data types. We need to go with the collection data types. Coming to the Salesforce, we'll be having three different types of collections. Those are list collection, set collection, and map collection. These are the different collection data types we'll be having. So tomorrow we'll start with the primitive data types first. We'll discuss this primitive data types briefly, how to define each and every data type, and what are the rules you need to follow while defining the data type. And we'll walk through collection data types after completing this primitive data types. Even coming to string primitive data types, on this we'll be having a lot of methods. We'll explore all the methods. Okay, any doubts on this so far? So if you want
No.
to explore the data types prior to that, what you can do is you can go to developer.salesforce.com and Apex. There you can see primitive data types. If you click on this primitive data types, you can see what are the different data types are present and for which purpose we use and how to define the data type. You can see that complete information from here as well. Okay. So tomorrow I'll start with this primitive data type. You are getting
You are
everything.
getting everything.
Huh.
Huh.
Adi garu, you can
I
ask.
think
Yeah.
yes.
So your deployment metadata also you are explaining, right?
Sorry,
So
metadata.
metadata deployment, how to deploy to, suppose it's going to develop a sandbox to
Mhm.
some testing environment.
Yeah, I told you now we'll be having chain set feature. So coming to the chain sets, like we're not having in a trailer environments, we won't be able to create that chain sets. Why means we won't have any sandboxes now. So what you
Mm.
can do is like I explained to you in the initial days, right? What you can do is like search for any trailhead models on a chain sets. If there is anything available, we can go through that. I think I might forward you to some blogs, right, Prithvi, for the
Yeah,
deployment.
change that one trail module was
It's there.
trailer.
Huh.
Yeah, it's there. Like
Forward it to Adi Garu, like in our group, share it in our group so that
yeah.
Adi Garu went through that. And another thing is like, I think, do you find any blogs for that chain sets deployment? Deployment.
I haven't tried. I gone through that
I think I
module.
shared that link,
I think
Salesforce Ben article. If I won't share, I'll share you today. Then I'll search in mobile and I'll share you that link as well, so that you'll get exposure on that. You'll get a brief understanding of that.
Okay.
Huh.
Sure.
Okay then. Okay, then thank you. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow onwards, we'll start a development. See, please, if you stuck somewhere, please feel free to interrupt me. We'll discuss. After clarifying your doubts only, I'll proceed further. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, then chalo. I'll upload today's session in the drive. And Prithvi, for you also, give me your mail ID in a ping me your mail ID in a group or personally, so that I'll give you access to upload the video.
yeah, the trailhead thing we covered.
Huh,
Right?
which we did, you can upload that.
Yeah,
Okay, then.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great
Is
day.
there any tool to develop this Apex programming?
Tool means like so
Writing the
to
codes like any
we'll be
developers?
having developer console. Na? Developer console is a very basic thing. From here, we can write any Apex code and everything. Whereas if we go for
Okay.
a customization, we'll be having this one, this extension, Lighting Studio extension. With this, we can implement any custom components, or else like we'll be having Visual Studio Code. So
Okay.
after completing this Apex and SOQL and everything, so while giving a knowledge of LWC, I'll show you how to use that Visual Studio Code as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, then have a great day. Bye bye.
Yeah. Thank you.